it's hard to quantify the benefit of BPM itself, but you can get eyes on opportunities for improvement within the operations processes, and you can quantify those quite easily once you've modeled them.
Welcome to Process Pioneers, the show that takes a deep dive into the minds of decision makers, key influencers, and process experts who are pioneering the world of everything process.
Welcome to the next episode of Process Pioneers. My name is Daniel Rayner. I'm the host of Process Pioneers, and in each of these episodes, I have the absolute privilege of sitting down with BPM practitioners that are putting process management into practice day in and day out across a wide range of organizations. And we've been receiving some fantastic feedback and testimonies from the audience, from you guys that are listening to this series, which is very encouraging. We are into episode 150. Possibly 160 now. I've lost track, to be honest, but one of the more recent feedback was this lady that I connected with, and she was saying she stumbled across the series. She was about to leave the whole BPM space, and because in the organization she was in, it wasn't a huge appetite. There wasn't a huge amount of focus given to it, and she was questioning whether what sort of value it could really bring, and people don't really care about this. It was such an uphill battle for her. Stumbled across the podcast, met all of the lovely practitioners that we have had the privilege of having conversations with, and found her community, found people that were living and breathing the same stuff that she was, and decided to stay in the BPM sphere, and is now making lots of progress in that same organization. And I'm just hearing some fantastic things there. So thanks everyone for joining and tuning in. If you have been listening for some time and have been enjoying the podcast, I'd encourage you to give us a rating, give us a review. It's going to help us continue to get the podcast out to more people. And if it is your first time, then a warm welcome to you. This is you're in for a very exciting conversation today, where I've got the Michael Fox sitting down with me again for a second time. We had Michael on a while ago now, and today we're going to do a deep dive into a particular topic. But Michael, thanks again for catching up with me again.
Thanks for having me, Dan. Nice to be part of the people who are putting process management on the map.
Absolutely. I think it's needed. I think, there's an understanding there from certain people, and we want to continue to spread that awareness and spread that adoption, because we understand how much value it can bring.
That's right.
But I guess one question that does come up is, when it comes to business process management, is actually quantifying the benefit. I think there was a bit of a wave maybe 10, 15 years ago of, we need to map processes, we need to capture everything, we need to capture the entire business. And a lot of, or I've heard from different people that, don't do process work anymore, or they don't believe in it, let's say that, because back then, when the whole organization was mapped, there was no real, what was the outcome here, what was the benefit, what was the purpose of it. And so I want to dive into that with you today, is how do we quantify the benefit of BPM?
It's an incredibly complex problem, Dan. And I think it really comes down to what opportunities lie within the organization's processes themselves. So BPM, it's hard to quantify the benefit of BPM itself, especially if they've never done it before. But you can get eyes on opportunities for improvement within the operations processes, and you can quantify those quite easily once you've modeled them. So, and then you can figure out what's the visibility worth to us when we actually do the BPM, when we actually manage it holistically end to end. And you can actually start to quantify benefits within your own process of managing process as well. It's not excluded. It's in there as well. It's a process that can be improved. Start doing it. And then what's the benefit of introducing a tool, or what's the benefit of introducing this new practice or so start to do it. You don't have to have the fanciest center of excellence or the fanciest tool to start in improving processes. But you do have to know what your process is to managing those processes to be able to start to quantify what it means.
That's good. That's great. And I know that with through Action Advisory, you work with a wide range of organizations that are embarking on this journey or maybe already on the journey, but helping them sort of uplift that BPM, that process capability. How do you ensure that these organizations you're working with, they don't just get lost in the overwhelming amount of things that you can do when it comes to process-related work? How do you ensure that they don't get 18 months, 2 years down the track and ask the question, well, why do we do all of that work?
I think it comes down to demonstration of value. So I think a lot of people get caught up in a methodology or all the different types of things that process, or all the types of different outcomes or anything that BPM can provide. But really, my customers, they start with nothing. So we are the first process practice that they've ever had. They outsource to us and we help do the whole end-to-end, top to bottom, end-to-end. So what is it how do you demonstrate value? It comes down to two things, right? Profit and reduction of risk. And who is it that needs to be making the decisions on those things? It's an executive. So really the question that you have to be asking is, what does my executive or my director or my manager or whoever's making decisions, the decision maker, what do they need to know so they can make a decision? So just like in managing any other process, right information, right person, right time, right? What information does my executive need to make a decision on an improvement? And how do we show them the difference between the current and the future state? So information in front of the decision maker at the right time, make a decision, quantify the benefit, put it in front of them, get them to make a decision about whether they think it's worth moving forward or not. And that's exactly what we're doing for our customers. And they're bought in because they can see it right in front of their very eyes. It's not an invisible concept. We start with a map. The map has limited utility, but it shows us where problems might lie or where the bottlenecks might be. And really, the analysis comes down to just simply quantifying out what the reduction in cycle time might be, or shifting work to a different role, which might be cheaper, or other things like, can we reduce inventory? Is there a better way that we manage inventory that reduces inventory? We know that inventory is taxed at the end of the financial year. How do we actually make sure that we're using the inventory in time for it to be not in the store when it's counted, stock take time, that sort of stuff. So, get the numbers. It's not difficult, but it can be time consuming by gathering the information. So, but you need to know what you're going after, and the director needs to know that the numbers that he has in front of them are right, because he will query them. So, how I normally approach that with customers is they give me the numbers. So I'm simply just there asking questions. I'm there to facilitate the process, but they are the ones helping me understand what it is, the opportunity, what their process is, what the numbers that go into it are. And I often tell customers, and part of our onboarding is these are the types of questions we will ask, that they're not sensitive about it. I understand that the rate that someone is paid is a sensitive topic. So I'm not asking people how much they're paid, but I'll ask the director what the typical agreed rate for calculating those benefits will be. It might not be right, but it's indicative. So, we're not gathering all the salaries of the people. We're simply just gathering a number that's agreed on by them so that we can calculate what roughly the benefit will be. And we don't have to be exact. This is not about getting down to the cents worth of benefits, right? It's understanding what all your opportunity ideas are, improvement ideas are in relation to one another. So get close, then zoom out, look at them in a list, see what all the numbers are and benefits are in a list, and have the director go, I really like the look of this one. Does it have any dependencies? Do we need to do any of these others before this one? No, let's go ahead and do it.
Yeah. And I suppose as we were talking earlier, before we jumped on, they're probably going to find that 20% of the processes, 20% of the activity, that the improvements that can be done is going to probably result in a good 80% of the outcome or the output.
Yeah, there are certainly outliers in terms of, there's outliers in terms of negatives. There are improvement opportunities that just aren't worth doing, right? There is a negative ROI, particularly in the first 12 months. But yeah, there is an example of that. Just this past week, I was assessing an opportunity with a customer around how they actually manage resources. So the time that goes into forecasting and understanding everyone's capacity, getting eyes on it with their sales team, all that sort of stuff, how to actually maximize the utilization of their people. How do we get eyes on it? We know the work's there to be done, but so-and-so is sitting here with 30% utilization and it's not even their fault. It's just that we're not planning well enough, or we don't have eyes on the situation well enough to be able to assign them more work. What's that opportunity worth? Well, we're looking at a $50,000+ improvement opportunity of benefit there, because if you can boost the number of hours that someone's working in the short term, if you can streamline the way and who's involved in the planning process. We're talking about several managers from different verticals. How do you get that over time? Well, 50 grand in the first year seems pretty good. What's the work that's going to take to actually get there? Turns out it's going to be less than a week's worth of work. The director's sitting here going, we have what we need. I know, what the benefit is going into it. It seems like it's worth it. And the ROI is extremely positive. And that's why being in business is lucrative. You get you get ROI on opportunities like this that you would never get anywhere else. Right?
Yes. And without that visibility, it's hard to make those decisions. As you were saying, we're trying to empower decision makers at whatever level in an organization to make better decisions at the end of the day.
That's exactly right. And another example is I have another customer. They're a small business, 17 staff. And just this week, there's a proposal that's gone to them on moving them across to a platform. The only system they're using is QuickBooks. So they're a manufacturing shop and they're not in any technology whatsoever. What's the opportunity there? What's a potential solution? The proposal came out at, there were 7 different opportunities presented, and the ROI is 50%. And I'm saying to the customer, sometimes organizations do the implementation at a loss, knowing that they're going to get benefit over time eventually. But here we are on the first version of the MVP of what we're going to put in, and you're going to get immediate benefit. How do we know that? It's because we understood what the process was. We understand where we're going. We understand the customer's goals, and we quantify the benefit of what those opportunities were before we even did it. I said to her, I should know what your answer is going to be before I even present to you. And the same should be for any process practitioner who's analyzed a process or analyzed an opportunity about what to improve, how to improve it, what it's worth. They should know the answer to the question of, is this worth doing, before they even approach the stakeholder, whether it's internal. I mean, a lot of process practitioners are internal. I'm just talking from a consultant's standpoint. But if you're in a team and you're a process analyst or you're a business analyst, and there's an opportunity in your backlog and you're analyzing it, what's it worth? And does the product owner or the product manager or whoever is the decision maker of this, what's their answer going to be? I should know it before I even approach them once I've analyzed it.
Yes, right. And what happens when, I guess that there are, what happens if all variables aren't maybe considered as part of that benefit? They get started and then you realize at some point through the process that actually the benefit isn't what we had initially anticipated. Maybe it's decreased, maybe it's increased. What happens then?
Yep. You adjust it and you reapproach your stakeholder. I think it's about being transparent, especially if you're an external consultant.
Yeah.
Because, if you say it as a consultant, it's not true.
Right.
If they give you the same number, it's true because they gave it to you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So if you discover that it's not the right number or something's changed, then it's just be open about it. Oh, we looked into this a little bit further. It doesn't seem like, something's changed, or we got something wrong, or we didn't consider this variable. It looks like, because if you're not open about it, you're going to go down this path of implementing something that's not worth it. And they're going to look back and go, you know what? Michael told me to do this and we're not seeing the benefit. Why did we do this? It only looks bad in the long run. It's much better just to have a 5-minute conversation about it as soon as you find it. And you just go, look, I've made a mistake. Can we just move? I mean, we're all adults here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just have a conversation, be transparent about it. What am I protecting? I'm actually, by having that conversation and admitting wrong, I'm protecting my reputation, because I can point them towards something that will deliver them value.
Yes.
So the other thing to keep in mind is you got to zoom out. So it's not all about just the one opportunity. It's what all your opportunities are in relation to one another.
Yeah.
Get it in a list, understand what all the benefits are top to bottom, and then make a decision.
Yeah.
Directors and people, decision makers, they will make decisions for different reasons. It's not just about the total dollar amount. They might be very interested in reducing risk in certain areas. So you need to consider that as well.
Yes.
Understand what they're going after and how they make decisions.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's good. And I think that, it obviously, to make these improvements, to make these changes, it's rarely a small task, an insignificant task. It's going to require different stakeholders, different people, and their commitment and their time. And I think that's one thing that I've noticed is that with everything else on someone's plate, sometimes it's hard for them to drop or stop what they're doing to work on the process instead of in the process. How do you change that culture, maybe in an organization where they've never really had a culture of improvement?
This is what I love about our approach. So we are extremely light touch. I'll give you an example. And I'll preface this by saying the opportunity that you come up with needs to be small. I'm not talking about finding opportunities that are worth millions of dollars. It will take you too long to implement. Find small iterative changes that will, over time, increase the overall profitability of the business. Okay. That means that when you go to assess the benefit, there's not a whole lot that goes into it. There might be a few stakeholders that are involved, but you're not going to need a whole lot of their time. So all of my outside of discovery work, which might be some longer workshops, an hour or two each. Quantifying benefits are half-hour meetings, if not that, with stakeholders. Because I am able to already articulate what the improvement opportunity is, and then I'm just getting information from them. Does it seem like a good idea? It sounds like, label it, understand what their position is, go through clarification, ask the questions around how long does this take your team? Is there a reporting available for it? What's your feeling around this? Is there anyone else I need to speak to? It's really light touch. So when you identify an opportunity, make sure it's small enough. Chunk it down a little bit. Do one at a time, because you might find that I can do one of these in a sprint. I can do one of these you shouldn't need to be spending a whole lot of time doing implementation work.
Yeah.
So in terms of your question around embedding into the culture, because it's light touch, they're not really disrupted by it. They appreciate you asking questions. There is obviously an interest from the practitioner around their work and why it's important and why they see it's fulfilling. What you're doing as a practitioner is you're understanding more around their experience and what their pain is and what their friction points are. You are offering support around how you lessen that friction, how you take it into flow. How do you make it go from friction to flow? So it's an understanding there that, even though I'm an external consultant, I'm being embedded into your teams. I'm here. I want to be supportive of you, and go from there. So when you're embedding into a culture, it's more of a, hey, I know Mike was working on this thing. I'm going to approach him and I'm not going to have a problem with doing that. Or when he contacts me for half an hour of my time, I'm very happy to give it to him. And I've experienced the opposite. I've been ghosted from people before. So they didn't feel it was important enough. Why? I need to understand why they didn't feel it was important enough. Usually after the first conversation, they understand its importance.
Yes.
But, my staff are just like, all they just have to do is just get in a room with Mike.
Yes.
After that, they're on board.
Yes. Yeah.
But it comes down to communicating what the outcome and the benefit is.
Yeah.
Understanding, resonating with their pain, and seeing a way forward that you can lead them through.
Yeah.
That's your job as a practitioner. It's not your job to come up with all the solutions. A lot of the opportunities that we quantify don't come from me. And that's good because when it's their idea, they're invested in it. We just have to know. We just have to validate that the idea is worth proceeding with.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what we're supporting with, right?
Yeah.
And then once we know that it's worth proceeding with, people are on board because it's just like, yes, we came up with this idea. It's going to be worth it. We can see it's going to be worth it. And Mike and his team are going to help move through the change. Understand who's impacted by the change, do the training plan, do the comms plan, all of the normal change stuff that goes into that. Yeah.
And I guess part of qualifying that whole, like the whole process is what's the cost to that as well. As you were saying earlier, it's looking at the benefit, but then what's required to reach that benefit, and how can we embark or implement something that isn't going to take years, but that we can see value in the short term.
And I think this comes back to your original question around how do we quantify the benefit of BPM. So let's talk about what needs to be true for BPM to be implemented, right? There needs to be some sort of strategy, and there needs to be alignment with strategy, and there needs to be a framework that you come up with. Now, that piece of work could take you 6 to 12 months to go through getting people on board, understanding what your framework is, understanding what tools you're going to use, how you're going to support it, what resources, people, etc. That process is in and of itself could cost you $150,000 to $200,000 worth of time, resource, whatever else. That's not even considering tool set. Okay. So it's like Action Advisory, we bring our framework. You don't have anything. You can adopt ours. It's quite light touch, and we can adjust it based on your requirements as we go. Right.
Yes.
Pretty pragmatic. It's upfront. You get the bare bones, and then we can build it up from there.
Yes.
So what's happened? Well, I know that quantifying the benefit up front, I've just saved the customer $200,000 because they don't have to do the framework side of things. All we have to do is have a conversation around, and you do this pre-sale, right? How does engaging us and understanding what your processes are, how does that align with your strategy? And if it doesn't align with your strategy, don't hire me.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's how does the framework operate and how does the process of managing process operate that actually saves some time over time? So for these companies, because they're small, they don't have the internal resource. We're actually cheap enough that it's actually worth just keeping us outsourced. So, it's worth it for them over the time. They could spend ages coming up with all their templates about how to do training plans, comms plans, action plans. They could spend ages trying to figure out how to model processes and where to store them and what to capture about them and how to link it in with everything else, with all your knowledge and everything else, all your artifacts. They could figure out time to do that, but we can do that really quickly. So, this third customer that I've been working with, I can model processes with them. They took on a lightweight solution using UPN. Really nice. None of their guys really see process models. So it was easy to adopt because there's only two shapes. And we were modeling processes. We got it down to half an hour. What's your process? Model. I start with this, then I do this. This produces that. Then I do this, and it's an outcome. So how long would they spend in meetings if they don't know how to drive process workshops? Oh, we've got flaming, we've spent half a day on this thing. We've got one model. What's it worth? What's it worth now? We've spent this time with 6 people and we've only got this far. 6 people times half a day. How much is that worth?
Yeah.
So it's about refining down what that is and embedding that in.
Yes.
But you have to know that if you are an organization looking to do this internally, it does cost something. It's not just a good idea. It does cost something. What's it worth over time?
Yes. And do you find that organizations get to a point where, I guess for some of them, it's the process of improving the processes that drive their organization? You get to a point where the whole business model is up for change, more or less. Like I was reading something on the weekend, and I was talking about just a brief summary of a few major global organizations that we all probably interact with on a weekly or a monthly basis or daily basis. And it just was talking about where they started and what type of business they were on day one and what was their business model and how it's almost like they're a completely different business now. How do you find organizations get to that point of, I guess, radical innovation as opposed to continually improving the existing processes that are already in place and feeling like, there's not much more we can squeeze out of what we currently do? When do you get to that point where you're like, we need to change some significant things here?
Yeah, I'll give you 2 examples around this. So one of my customers, the manufacturing customer, they also do servicing. And what they're looking to do is, because servicing takes their people off the floor from their manufacturing job, it does cost them a little bit more money to do servicing than elsewhere, right? They're looking to pull out their servicing business into a separate sister company. Or how do you do that? Well, you understand what the operating model is. And you understand what processes you need to actually do the servicing, so you understand what resources you require. And if you can have dedicated resource to that business, that means that you're not pulling people out of your manufacturing business to service it, which means now you can offer it at a lower cost to serve. Right. That's one example of how understanding the process can facilitate a change of business model. That's what they're doing, right? The second one is Action Advisory itself. We've come in to do consulting for companies around what BPM is, how it's delivered end to end, top to bottom. Now we're finding a need in the market around what the knowledge to do that is. So now there's an opportunity for us to service or serve practitioners with our framework. So it's just like, this is not just our IP and we're not just going to use it internally. I've built up a system here that we're testing in beta. Next year, I hope to make that available to other practitioners who want to understand what it means to manage an ecosystem, understand opportunities, quantify benefits, and lead people through change. It's a change of business model because fundamentally it's a different operating model. The product is different. It's not B2B, it's B2C. It's a fundamental change to how you operate. Yes, we can run both, but there needs to be an understanding around how each operates. How do we do that? You guessed it, through understanding what the process is.
Yes. Yeah. Great. No, that's awesome. And for those that are listening that maybe you piqued their interest around this whole idea of quantifying the benefit of BPM, it's a hurdle that stopped us in the past, and we've never really been quite able to answer that question or present that to senior stakeholders or decision makers, things like that. Where do they go to learn more about this? How can our audience interact with you and the work that you're doing at Action Advisory?
Yep. You can find us at our website, actionadvisory.com.au. You can head over to our insights page. I am posting up blog posts there around our own methodology and how to be good at delivering process change. Highly actionable. I named my company Action Advisory for a reason. I want it to be highly actionable content. I want there to be things that you can go away with. As of last Friday of recording, this is the 3rd of July recording, there is a course that I've released for practitioners. It's basically my insights page supercharged. You're going to get all of the templates and all the Excel workbooks and things to go from there. Later this year, we'll be releasing a community where you'll get the course for free. And then next year, hopefully, this product will be up for people to start to use as well. They can start putting, and it's agnostic to wherever you're storing processes today. It's not got a process modeling component. It's just managing the ecosystem and the cycle of change for you. So head over to the website. You can also find me on LinkedIn, _Michael-J-Fox. Can you believe that the original one was taken? You can find me. I post there daily, just about different things that we're up to and how to do this better. And I'm always up for a chat. Just DM me on there, and always up for a chat about how things can be done better or problems that people are experiencing. I'm always up for a chat.
Awesome. That's great. And he does post daily. And let me tell you that it is very educational content. So, please follow Michael on LinkedIn. And you, just from what he posts on a micro content level, you're going to glean a lot from what he's doing. So, Michael, I just want to thank you for sitting down with me, having this conversation again. I'm glad we're able to pick a topic and deep dive into it. And I think it's going to help our audience, our community, have better conversations around this and be able to start driving more of this in their organization. I know I can think of a number of people off the top of my head that are going to benefit from this conversation. So, once again, thanks so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to connect with you again.
Appreciate it, Dan. Thank you very much.